used to be an engineer.
Buenos dias. Zhao Shang Hao. Good morning. Welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. We are so happy that you've chosen this YouTube channel, this Sabbath, this sanctuary and time. We know that you have so many options on Sunday morning, and that you chose to be here is something that we celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to our visitors and anyone who may be watching our service online for the first time. Please complete our Get in Touch online form by clicking the link below in our video description. We now invite everyone to greet each other in any way you possibly can. Elbows if you're here, and if you're joining us online, please say hi in the chat. Thank you. And now Rev Rose has a few announcements.
Good morning. We are calling all theater talent, all singers, set designers, and musicians because casting auditions are open for the show of a lifetime. Written and directed by our own RE community, our first ever all-original SMUUCh Christmas pageant. You must be 18 or under to audition. It will be based on the tale of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, who was wronged. Auditions, from which no one will be turned away, will be held on Wednesday, November 9th from 6 to 7 p.m. Hope to see your kiddos there. Now, secondly, you may hear in my voice that I'm recovering from a cold. I worked from home this week, and I have consulted with a nurse, and I've been cleared to preach, but I'm going to skip the receiving line and fellowship hall just to model and take care of myself and all of you. Our opening words come from poet Ellen Bass, who says, "Imagine that the person you are encountering in the aisle in the store is grieving mightily for someone or some lost dream. Come, let us worship. Let us worship that together we buoy each other through life's losses." Please rise as you are willing and able for our opening hymn, number 123.
Once more. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea.
As Jen Nelson comes forward to light our chalice, We invite you to join us as we recite our covenant. Let us affirm that love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Good morning. I'd like to invite the children to come up front with me. You guys can come a little closer. Thank you. Good morning. I see some people already have their costumes on. That is wonderful. What is everyone else going to be for Halloween? Anyone like to share? What'd you say?
Phoenix.
A phoenix. Very cool. All right, what about you all? Can you think of when you were younger, or maybe last year, what was your favorite Halloween costume?
I dressed up like sushi once, but nobody understood what it was supposed to be.
Sushi. That's very cool, yes. Don't know. That's all right. Yes. Oh, nice. So he said that his favorite costume was a monster and that he liked to do the monster mash in it. All right, does anyone know what it means to transform? Transform means to dramatically change. So it's kind of like when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. There is a dramatic change that happens. I have some simple costumes with me. Yeah, we have a bumblebee and a butterfly. All right, what do we think transformation has to do with Halloween? Anyone have any ideas? Yeah, Andre?
Transformation, like, you can change into stuff that's not, like, real, or maybe stuff that is real, but it's too big.
Exactly. On Halloween, we get to transform into something new and different, like a banana. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you all know the story of Halloween? No. All right. Well, good, because I'm here to tell you. It started a long, long time ago in Europe, and it was called All Hallows Eve. It was believed that on Halloween night, that the dead could communicate with us who are alive because the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead were thinnest at this time. And that's why you see people on Halloween dressing up as ghouls or zombies, or maybe the Grim Reaper, other characters, because it was believed that these characters could communicate between the two worlds of the living and the dead. And so on All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, it invites us to transform into costumes and to reflect on the people in our lives who have died. And death doesn't have to be scary. Death is a natural part of life. Because we all have ancestors, great-great-grandparents, who have come before us. Some of us have lost parents or siblings, or maybe aunts and uncles. And they're no longer with us, but we can honor and celebrate them today and during this fall season. I have also brought some leaves with me. And take a look at them. So right now, when we go outside, we notice that when we go outside right now, that the leaves are changing colors. So what do we think leaves have in common with Halloween?
Maybe they have red color.
Yes.
And this color is white brown.
The leaves are changing. They have transformed, just like we do on Halloween when we put on costumes. All right, so who can tell me what color are leaves in the summertime? They are green. And what color are leaves in the wintertime after they have died? Brown. And right now, we are kind of in this in-between place, the fall season, when the leaves are transitioning, or they are transforming into these beautiful colors of reds and yellows and purples and oranges. And I love this fall season, just like many of you, because we get to see the leaves change and transform, just like I enjoy watching you all put on costumes and transform. All right, I want to try something with you that I haven't done before, but I'm excited about it. I want everyone to grab one leaf out of the basket. Oh, some of you already have. All right, just grab one.
Are you supposed to be real? I know where they are.
All right, I want everyone to hold the leaf in their hands. Do you want to have a seat? You sit down right here. All right. I'd like to invite you to participate in a meditation with me. And so at this time, I want us to close our voices and close our eyes. And I want you to hold the leaf near your heart. If you don't have a leaf with you, I want you to imagine one in your hands. Together, let's practice taking some deep breaths. As you inhale, imagine the leaf is alive and green, like the summer that has just passed. And as you exhale, imagine the leaf slowly turning brown and falling towards the winter that is before us. Let's breathe in one more time. Now I want you to focus on the small space you create between your inhale and your exhale. That moment right after you filled your lungs with air, but before you've released it. When you pause in this space, imagine the leaf in your hands transforming into a bright fall color. Breathe in. One more time. All right, you can open your eyes now. So just like the leaves, when we dress up on Halloween, the season invites us to reflect on and celebrate natural transformations between the life and death of all things. All right, thank you so much for participating in that meditation with me. At this time, you can put your leaves back in the basket, stand up, and join me to go to our RE classes.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in our small groups. This month, the theme is courage. After reflecting on courage this month and the theme of grief for today's service, I found myself drawn to explore losses in life that did not involve the death of a loved one. From the end of a relationship to a difficult health diagnosis to an unexpected career change, the grief that comes from non-death losses can be significant. This grief can be referred to in different ways, such as disenfranchised or ambiguous grief. And the grief can be compounded by the fact that often it is not recognized by those around us. Of the many non-death losses that humans experience, the most significant one for me has been QREM from 1991, losing my religion. I was born and raised Catholic by a Catholic mother and a Methodist father. I followed my mother's lead, attending Mass on Sunday mornings and catechism on Wednesday evenings. Fast forward to my teens, and after a semi-agnostic period of questioning and angst around my faith, I began to take a deeper interest in exploring spirituality and Catholicism. In fact, this interest grew so strong that I chose to go to a Catholic university and ultimately to major in theology. Following college, I spent a year as a full-time volunteer with a Catholic NGO and then proceeded to earn my master's in theological studies at another Catholic university where I also worked in campus ministry. After grad school, I took a job with the Catholic NGO I'd volunteered through and was on staff there for 5 years. I don't share all of this to detail my early adult life for you, but rather to illustrate that I didn't just attend Mass. I was all in with the Catholic Church, and my Catholic faith was a central part of my life. Now, there were certainly things about the church that troubled me, the role or lack thereof of women, the treatment of the LGBTQ community, the hierarchical and patriarchal nature of the institution. But my idealistic 20-something self believed that I could effect more change from within than by jumping ship. So I attended a progressive parish, volunteered with Catholic social justice groups, and attended call to action conferences with fellow liberal Catholics in an effort to bolster my commitment. In the end, I had to accept that there was no change on the horizon. I'd watched as the church paid off victims of child sexual abuse while protecting the abusers. As my male counterparts in our theology programs had the choice of ordination, while the full physical and spiritual personhood of women, people of color, and LGBTQ community members continued to be denied. I also grew tired of the mental gymnastics I went through during every Mass to neutralize or feminize the litany of male terms and pronouns for the divine. For my mental and spiritual health, as well as my integrity, I had to leave. My identities as Catholic, as theologian, as working for a Catholic NGO shattered almost overnight and didn't have obvious replacements. Relationships with valued mentors, friends, and colleagues that centered largely around a shared Catholic faith felt vulnerable and at risk. I feared my career opportunities would be limited based on my academic and professional experience to date. I was angry. I was sad. I was grieving. I was grieving, and no one seemed to even notice. That was 20 years ago. I've experienced a lot of change and healing and lived a lot of life in the last 2 decades. I pivoted in my career. I married a disenfranchised Seventh-day Adventist. We lived in Singapore for 12 years and traveled widely. And we're raising a child who is a reminder to me each day of why I left the religious path of my youth and found one that welcomes and celebrates all people and shares my values of community, justice, and sustainability. Today, as we reflect on the changing seasons, on losses in life, and on the transformative space in between, I am filled with gratitude and hope. Each of our life's journeys is unique and complex. Had I not started mine as a Catholic, I may not have found my way to Unitarian Universalism at mid-age. My values of community, social justice, and sustainability that drew me to the UU tradition were cultivated in Catholicism and are aspects of the church that I continue to carry with me. As we remember and celebrate the loved ones we've lost, so too may we remember and celebrate other losses that we've grieved, and through which we have been transformed.
In place of the musical interlude this morning, we are going to sing a hymn, number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. Love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. Pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. got pain like an arrow in my soul. Tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a fountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
This is the time in our order of service where we draw to heart and mind those in our midst who are suffering and those who feel the sweet relief of our burdens easing. We give our love to those untangling themselves from relationships that no longer serve them. We grieve for the loss of energy and time that chronic illness takes on the body and mind, and our hearts go out to all who are struggling to make ends meet. We extend our gratitude to people who make caring for children their primary spiritual practice, and we join in wonder with all people who are bravely facing their final days. And as always, we rejoice over the exquisite beauty in this world, as small or life-changing as each piece of beauty might be. In place of joys and sorrows today, we will instead engage in a litany of those who have died. I will begin by reading the names of people who have been memorialized here within the last year. Let us remember Eleanor Bowley, Jerry Hollenbeek, Charlotte Harris, Joe Neff, Connie Rose, Jan Velliser, Dutch Harpool, Marta Bainham, B. Notley, Paul Spahn, Wynne Etzenhauser, and the ashes of infant Hope Walker. I invite us into a moment of silence to speak the names and remember those who have died in our own circles. I invite you to bring them into this space, speaking their name, drawing their heart or mind, drawing their face into your own heart and mind. Tim Schwab. Keeping your eyes closed, let us do our litany. Your response is simple. Just respond with me, saying, "We remember them." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys that we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. I invite you to put your feet flat on the floor, your hands in your lap. Drawing your awareness to your breathing, we invite to us a sense, a presence, resurrecting in our memory and in our hearts, pulling on our heartstrings, allowing ourselves to open, remember, love, feel. We come into this present moment, connecting to our sources, letting the corners of our lips turn up into a smile. I shall now read an affirmation, and I invite you to allow it to wash over you. I am living a life I don't regret, a life that will resonate with my ancestors and with as many generations forward as I can imagine. I am attending to the crises of my time with my best self. I am of communities that are doing our collective best to honor our ancestors and all humans to come. Please remain seated for our meditative hymn, the last time we will sing it in this month, this time directing it towards your lost loved ones.
How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to
Our first reading comes from poet and farmer Wendell Berry. He says, "We clasp the hands of those that go before us, and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life, who also move in a dance to a music so subtle and so vast that no one ever hears it except in fragments."
Our second reading is a poem written by Unitarian Universalist choral director Ruth McKendry Treen. She says, "Perhaps on a day very much like today, I shall die. A pleasant July, warm and kind. It might be September, when summer is ending and autumn begins. If I die in winter, my ashes will mix with the snow and melt into spring as willows turn soft and green. And then I'll return to that time and space that was my home before my birth."
Here below me, we have placed the photos of those whom we love who have died. There are many people here, their faces and memories honored and glowing in the light of this community, brought back to the mind and blossoming once more in the heart, remembered for the complex shape their lives took. Remembered for their laughter, their life's purpose, their struggles, and their death. There are people whose photos also aren't here. People whose memories and faces are carried in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Mantles all over the world will be adorned like this in the coming nights, but even more so, with coffee prepared just the way they liked it, their favorite meal placed out, their books or their instruments displayed. These spaces of remembrance are meant to forge a crack in our everyday living rooms or kitchen shelves to open up a special, different type of space. For our homes in everyday lives often become commonplace, unchanging, and even boring to us. But with our intention, we can create spaces that seem to exist in a time outside of time. On All Hallows Eve, we dredge up our memories not only to honor those who have died, but to honor the great in-betweenness of living, to peer into the face of the deep and lift up that all living beings must also die. And that perhaps on a day very much like today, you and I will die. We create these spaces to remember not only those who have already crossed that threshold of life into death, but to remember also that our lives hang in the balance, that life itself includes many liminal spaces. Liminal. I think this is an important word for when we are talking about death. It's spelled Liminal, and I drew this. It comes from the Latin word meaning threshold or a rite of passage. I've made this graphic to help describe the word because I think it's such an important concept as we navigate any of life's many losses. So here we have the word, bookmarked by two tall L's. The starting points and ending points that are grounded and steady. But to be in the liminal space is to go in the in-between. It's to be in the process of crossing a threshold in transition. It is to be wobbly and unsure. Here we see a person walking on a tightrope between the two solid grounds. On the left, we also have the green leaves of summer, coursing with sunlight and water, strong and connected to the tree. And then on the far right, we have the barren branches in full dormancy, trunk frozen solid. But as our person wobbles in that liminal space, we see below them the ever-falling, ever-changing, hardening, and crunchifying leaves as they become skeletons and decompose into forest floor litter. I wonder, what liminal spaces are you in? Where are you in the process of grieving? Grieving for a person, grieving for a dream. Are you in a wobbly transition? To be in this in-between space is to live in that space between what no longer is and what is yet to be. For example, I'm pregnant. I'm no longer not a mom, but I'm also not yet a mom. It's to be caught, living as life becomes, transforms, or ends. Because when it comes to dying, when people are in the end of life phase, there is a certain liminal space that cracks open that we who are living can sense as well. There's a book I love, and it's called Final Gifts. I think everyone should read it. It's written by two hospice nurses who tell of people dying of terminal illness. After having sat by the bedside of hundreds, maybe thousands of people throughout their careers, the authors recount that there seems to be a time when people begin to sort of slip away, and the final gifts that the title refers to are the hints that people give to signal that their time is coming nearer, such as the cryptic, poetic comments that people speak on their deathbeds. You may know this from your own experience. Someone might say that they're getting ready to go on a trip, or even recount that they're seeing their lost loved ones around their bedside. Often people will drink more water than seems possible. One man once asked me for a cup of water, and I brought it to him, and he said, "No, I need 500 gallons of water." And I thought, where is he slip sliding off to? In the book, they illustrate how people even have some level of control over when they die. People will wait for someone to get to the bedside to die, someone who's traveled. Or sometimes I'll have family members tell me that they feel so guilty that a person died right when the whole family went to lunch. And I have to wonder if they just needed some space to die. Or people will say things like, oh, don't get me a Christmas present, and then die on December 23rd. Who really knows? None of us livings. But we who are living can also sense that there is a connection between us and those who have died. A presence, a sudden awareness. So many of us have had experiences of feeling connected to those who are past, maybe even especially around the time of someone's passing. I knew a woman whose 18-year-old son had died, and she would often seek his support, specifically when thrift shopping, because she always had better luck. I remember one time that she was shopping to set up a new kitchen and was getting frustrated, and she said, okay, Matt, help me out here. And she opened her eyes, looked down, and there on the shelf below her was a complete set of beautiful hand-painted nesting bowls. She will always be thanking her son for those nesting bowls. Of course, none of this is evidence-based. It's all a mystery. Anytime that someone dies or when we experience a loss in our lives that pushes us out into that liminal space, we are called to live into the mystery of it. For actually, the word liminal was first used by anthropologists describing the phases that an individual goes through during rites of passage. And embedded within its meaning is the sense of confusion. That any time you go through a transformation or rite of passage, it is going to be marked by a sense of the unknown, the mystery, that wobble, discomfort, and confusion. So if you are amidst a great life transition right now, or even a smaller life transition right now, if you're on that wobbly wire, wondering where you're headed in a disoriented, confused state, which is probably many of us, I encourage you to use this holiday of All Hallows Eve, All Saints' Day, Halloween, as a form of honoring the in-between times, and indeed to celebrate the unknown and the mystery of this great interdependent web of life and death, of which we are all a part. To use our intentionality to create those special little spaces that call in a time out of time. Maybe this looks like putting up photos of those who you love, or journaling about what they taught you, remembering the trials they endured to put yours into perspective or gain strength. Maybe it means reaching out your hands to those who came before us, generations ago, and resolving ever more so to live a life that would resonate with them. Or maybe it looks like making an altar to your lost job, your lost identity, your lost marriage, the faith you left, your dead name. Maybe it's a pile of leaves that you rake into the corner of the yard in which little critters can overwinter, and come spring, you'll see how death must bring life. As those leaves transform into sprouts so freshly green that life once more must burst forth. And here, of course, is our evidence-based information that leads us to understand the space between death and life, that breaks apart the illusion that we are living so far away from the dead, because the cycle of death and rejuvenation sings so clearly in nature, we can recall it to our own lives as well, reminding us that, of course, when we step out onto that wobbly wire, that it will give way to new life. That even though the only way through the liminal space is to keep going, Waiting for us is something fresh and grounded and redeeming in its own unimaginable way. So I invite you to consider, on your own wobbly wire, as you try to find solid ground in this confusing life, if you are grieving mightily for someone or for a lost dream, I invite you to engage in grief work in the next few days, in the form of creating those intentional spaces or moments that honor how precious and precarious life is. To undertake actual activities to cement that we are living a life that we don't regret. That even in our difficulties, our lives will resonate and lead those who come after us into a world that is more connected to creation and destruction as one. To reach out those hands to those who came before us and to the hands of those who came after us, and remember that together across these thresholds, we buoy each other through life, steadying each other on our tightropes. That even though each of us sees but a fragment, hears but a fragment of the song, we can look into the faces of those who came before, glowing and dancing in the candlelight on the mantle, and bring them back to life. Or draw before yourself a mirror and see in your own face the photo that will one day reside on someone else's mantle. A smiling, loving, supportive face. And imagine how grateful you would be to be brought back to this beautiful, aching world, to peer into the faces of those you've left behind. Blessed be, and amen.
The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us in our hearts until we are together again.
Please rise if you are willing and able for our closing hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
This week, I invite you to do the hard but sacred work of remembering. Go in peace.